So welcome everyone. I am so grateful that you're taking the time to come and listen to this Canine Nutrigenomics presentation. Most of you don't know me, so I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Lilian Merida. I have been training dogs for over 50 years. I am a native of Venezuela, but have been living in Florida and the United States for the past 21 years. And I have bred golden retrievers and Labrador retrievers. Right now I have 4 labs. 2 of them are actively competing in agility, which is my love right now, is agility competitions. And the way that I got introduced into the world of natural healing or natural rearing, how we like to call it, is because of getting frustrated. Like I was, sharing with Claire a minute ago, like, issues arising with my dogs, going to the vet, getting treatment. They would get better for a little bit. And then 15 days later, a month later, we were back at square one. So that made me, and, this was 45 years ago. There was no internet. There was no, you just had to go to the vet. And I thought, like, well, why are we doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result? So why can't we get to the root cause? And that led me into looking at homeopathy and acupuncture and herbs and essential oils and all those kinds of things that I really think work with the body to help the body heal itself from the inside out, as opposed to all these pharmaceuticals. So that is something that called to my attention, and I was really interested in it. I had some really good mentors, some vets, some holistic vets that I found that taught me a lot and gave me books and shared information. And then I thought, like, well, why can't we go the prevention route? Like, why wait for things to happen? Why can't we prevent and do our best? And I've been doing raw feeding for over 25 years, when raw feeding was not even a thing. So I've dabbled on all the holistic modalities. I even had a hydro exercise pool for dogs when we moved here to the United States. So pretty much any holistic path, I follow it in. I was introduced to Canine Nutrigenomics, something that we're going to be talking about called genetic activation. And it sounds a little bit sci-fi, but I'm going to try to simplify the science as much as possible. And I was introduced by a good friend who's an equine holistic vet, but she had helped me rehab a dog from a cruciate ligament injury when everybody said, oh, she won't be able to compete anymore. She's going to have to be couch potato. There's nothing you can do about it. And honestly, I really did not have the funds at that time to do the expensive surgery. Veterinary, I don't know about in Europe, but here in the United States, veterinary care has become like really, really expensive. And then when I researched, they said, well, you can manage it, but she's probably going to have surgery on the other leg. So I wasn't like totally sold on it. And she helped me through, let's say, non-conventional alternative therapies. That dog went to compete back again and won another championship. So that opened like this whole new avenue of like, wow, like our bodies are incredible, have incredible ability to heal. And I wholeheartedly believe that. So I'm going to share my screen. What we're going to be talking about, canine nutrigenomics. It's a new buzzword that is a combination of nutrition and genes. So it's a new science that is showing how nutrition can actually change our gene expression and optimize health span. So I am sure that a lot of you have, oops, what did I do? A lot of you have heard this statement, oh, it's in my genes, diabetes runs in my family, heart disease runs in my family. But what science is uncovering now is that your genes can be expressed or not expressed. So even if you have the genetic, let's say, makeup for a certain disease, if that gene is not expressed, you don't necessarily have to suffer of that disease. So very, very interesting. That's a whole new, it's a little bit above my pay grade. I do have a 4-year degree in biology, but not that I've just been training dogs for 50 years. So I love science, but it's not, I can't explain it. But those of you that are interested, it's called epigenetics. It's very, very interesting. So I do want to give a full disclosure that these statements have not been evaluated. Here in the United States, we have the FDA that regulates, and at least here in the United States, only pharmaceuticals and drugs can cure. Everything else is just, folk tale, I guess. So these products do not intend to cure, treat, prevent, or mitigate any disease. So I want to put that out of the way. And I follow this group here in the United States called The Truth About Pet Cancer. And they did a documentary where they interviewed about 7 or 8 holistic vets. They also did, they first started with The Truth About Cancer for humans, actually, and they did interview holistic practitioners all over the world. And then I guess people were saying, well, my dog has cancer as well. Like, are these things that you're saying for humans, do they apply for dogs? And that is, I think, what kind of led to this series. And then there's a couple of quotes that I copied here. Also, Dr. Martin Goldstein, I don't know if you've heard about him. This is the first book that I read on holistic healing. This is an old book, The Nature of Animal Healing. And again, these are some of the things that started opening my eyes, like, wow, there's another way that's not necessarily pharmaceuticals. So he says something that really, really struck me. When I graduated Cornell in 1973, Cornell is one of the best veterinary schools here in the United States. He said approximately 1 out of 10 dogs had cancer, and it was always a disease of the old. So if we saw a dog that had a lump and the dog was young, we eliminated cancer as a possibility. But he says nowadays they commonly see dogs under 18 months of age with terminal cancer. And then if you look back 50 years, some would say the cancer rate might have been 1 in 100 dogs. And today, according to PhDs, the dog has the highest rate of cancer of any mammal on the planet. And that is just, crushing. Literally from last year's, them saying 1 in 2 to this year, 1 in 1.65 dogs will succumb to cancer. So if this trend continues, it pretty much means that every dog will be dying of cancer. Canine Nutrigenomics, Dr. Jean Dodds was the pioneer with doing the titer testing for the vaccines. And she's done a lot of, I just admire, her tenacity and how much she's put into research. Remember again that all of this research is kind of slow, right? Because none of the companies that make products that we use on our dogs that may have a link to getting them sick, nobody's going to put money to do testing, right? To do studies. So this is like a very slow progress. So one of the things she says is you have more influence over your dog's health than you ever imagined. When it comes to the most serious health conditions, please don't give up. Just because he is battling an illness today doesn't mean he can't shine with optimal health soon. I love that statement. And then this has become like my Bible. This is a book that came out, I think, a little less than a year ago, The Forever Dog. And actually, Rodney Habib is the producer of this series. And then he partnered with Dr. Karen Becker, who's a holistic vet here in the United States. And then this book came out. I highly, highly recommend it. It says dogs have much higher rates of many cancer than do people, including 35 times more skin cancer, 4 times more breast cancer, tumors, 8 times more bone cancer, and twice the incidence of leukemia. So it is my particular belief that we're looking at kind of like an epidemic of a cancer in dogs. So dogs are exposed to a massive amount of environmental toxins. And like we were talking before, most of those in this group. We're trying to do the best for our dogs. We try to do raw feeding, minimal vaccinations. We try not to use any of the flea and tick products. So we're still having issues, right? And we're like, what am I doing wrong? What else can I do? And part of the problem is that even, we know vaccines and pharmaceuticals and antibiotic destroys the gut flora, but there is, air pollution. We can't control air pollution. Those of us, I'm very lucky to live out in the country, but for people that live in the city, these dogs are breathing this toxic air. If you have to walk your dog through the streets, that all those contaminants from those are heavy particles that tend to lay low to the ground, and that's where our dogs live, right? So even if we try to avoid all those toxic flea and tick medications, you have no control. Like if you're walking your dogs on lawns that have been sprayed, glyphosate is a huge issue here in the United States. There is a product called Roundup that people spray, and that is sprayed on all the lawns to keep them free of weeds, and it's very toxic. And then there's all these products that we use around the home that we do have control over these, but sometimes, they're tricky. We think they may be safe, or we assume they're safe, and they're not. Things like EMF and Wi-Fi, what's in the water. And then I don't know if everybody here does raw feeding or supplements with some raw or additional food, but here in the United States, I would say 90% of the people are feeding kibble. And kibble is a double whammy in the sense that the grains that are used to manufacture it come from genetically modified grains, and the animal protein, whether it's turkey, chicken, or beef, these are animals that in turn have been fed genetically modified crops, so they get it like super concentrated. And that's why it's so important to add other ingredients, even if you cannot do 100% raw or cook for your dog. But in that documentary that I told you about, all the vets agreed that if you add as little as between 10 and 20% of real food to your dog's meal, that it's a massive upgrade that can help him stay healthier. So let's get a little bit into what is happening inside the cells. So all these environmental toxins are causing something called free radicals. And free radicals in turn cause something called oxidative stress. Oxidative stress leads to inflammation, and inflammation, when left unchecked, leads to disease. So this is the cycle that, and it's not just for dogs, every mammal, we're all exposed to this. So how do we get free radicals? What are free radicals? So on the outside, this is what we're familiar with. So we leave an apple, we cut it, we leave it on the counter, we know for sure it's going to turn brown. That is oxidation. Anything that comes in contact with oxygen will be oxidized. It will be rusted. Like if you leave an unprotected metal outdoors, it will rust. So that is what happens on the outside. What happens in the inside of the cells is that free radicals are these, we call them the bad guys. They're missing an electron, and they're going to try to steal it from some component of the cell. So they attack the cells and they're stealing this, and then now we have an unstable, unhealthy cell. So free radicals, we can't avoid them because our bodies make them, our cells make it when we breathe, right? Because air contains oxygen, and also when we eat, as this food is metabolized, we create free radicals. So it's the equivalent of, think of it like putting gas on your car, right? We need to put the gas for the car to run, but the exhaust is toxic. So inside our cells is something, of course, this is a simplification, but we need food and air to make energy, and that is causing these free radicals. And when those are left unchecked, it's going to lead to disease. So there's over 200 diseases that have been documented that are related to oxidative stress caused by those free radicals, and that includes cancer, and that's both for humans and animals. So take a guess of how many free radicals our dogs make in a day. And this is going to blow your mind. It is estimated that dogs make 300 septillion, that's 300 followed by 24 zeros, free radicals per day. This is just by breathing, eating, and being exposed to all those toxins. So that oxidative stress created by those free radicals is going to affect every single component of our dog's body: the brain, the heart, the kidneys, the liver, the joints, the gastrointestinal system, the immune system, the blood vessels, the skin, and the lungs. We were talking before we got started about skin issues, allergies, right? What happens, the skin is the largest organ. It is an organ. It's not just the skin, it's an organ, and it's a living, breathing, and the body uses it to try to get rid of some of these toxins. So what happens is that that's what we see as the itching, the scratching, the lesions, the hot spots. It's just the body saying like, oh, there's all this stuff inside and I'm trying to get rid of it. So this accumulation of oxidative stress is one of the theories of why we age, just not, for dogs, any mammal. So far, we have only known about one solution to free radicals. And this is what you've heard: antioxidants. But look at this word, direct antioxidants. So direct antioxidants work this way. One molecule of a direct antioxidant. So what are those? All of the things that we know we should eat, right? Green leafy vegetables and fruits and mushrooms and things with color. But if a dog is fed a diet of, just kibble, well, none of this is there. There's no color. And then the other way we know is through supplements, right? All the supplements and the oils and the glucosamine and the this and the that, but they are all direct antioxidants. So what this means is one molecule will neutralize one free radical, and they're both destroyed. So it's a one and done approach. So now you can understand why we're still struggling. Is because we have this many per day. So no matter how much fruit, veggie, supplements, it's going to create, maybe one little, dent, because there's not enough antioxidants, right? We would have to eat truckloads of blueberries and oranges to be able to neutralize this many free radicals, right? So this is what the antioxidant is doing. It's giving that electron, that the free radical, to calm him down so that he doesn't steal it from the cell. So what we have found is that there is a better way. And this is where nutrigenomics comes into play. It's how these nutrients can affect your DNA. And so every gene, what they've discovered is that every gene has a direct or indirect relationship to nutrition. So we really, really are what we eat. And genes can be turned on or turned off. So this is what I was explaining in the beginning, the new field called epigenetics. So if the gene is turned on, it's going to send a signal to the DNA to do something. Or if the gene is turned off, the same way, it sends a signal to the DNA to not do something. So through nutrition, we're sending a signal. And now we know that there are certain nutrients that will activate the cell. It would activate the DNA so that it makes more of the good guys, more of the antioxidant. Now notice this word, enzymes. So these are not direct antioxidants, these are enzymes. Why are they so important? Because your enzymes can make, neutralize a lot more free radicals than the direct antioxidants. So what they have discovered is that we can activate, that's turn on the switch, right? Gene instructions, and there's one switch called NRF2. Now this has a biochemical name so long I cannot even pronounce it, but think of this as a protein. This is a protein that's inside the cell of every mammal. And when that protein is activated by certain nutrients, it tells the DNA to make more of the protective enzymes, the anti-inflammatory enzymes, and the detoxifying enzymes. To me, this is crucial for our dogs because of what we talked in the beginning about all those toxins that they're exposed to on a daily basis. Also remember that our dogs are smaller than us. So we have the same amount of environmental toxins that we're exposed to on a smaller body. They walk barefoot, they don't wear shoes, they don't take showers every day, they don't wear protective clothing, they lay low, right? So, you know, we don't know if like their bed or the spray, the anti flame retardant or the stain resistant that is sprayed on the fabric that our couch is made of. So they're laying there and they're laying down low on the floor. So all these particles, all these toxins are heavier than air. So they're going to be low and concentrated. In that book, they've actually have done some studies and they have found way higher concentrations of these toxins in dogs, and that even is permissible or allowed in humans, and they are smaller, right? So that is why they're being so affected. So when we activate these enzymes, they protect against oxidative stress and they signal the DNA to make more of the antioxidant enzymes, the anti-inflammatory proteins, the detoxifying enzymes, to repair DNA and regulate apoptosis. Apoptosis is programmed cell death, which sounds like something bad, but it's actually something good, because all cells have a cycle. They, you know, they're born and they live for a certain time. So we'll have a liver cell or a heart cell, and then they die, but they're replaced by new healthy cells. So apoptosis is the removal of the old cells. When the old cells are not removed and they keep replicating, they think that that is one of the theories of why tumors are formed, because the cell reproduction is not turned off and they keep growing. And then these two go hand in hand. Why is the DNA repair so important? Because when I have a new cell, the new cell is basically making a copy, right? If you've seen a little bit about, and it's fascinating. You can Google, how does DNA replicate? So our DNA, the two strands separate and then they get copied. So what happens if there's a scratch, if there's a dent, if there's some oxidative damage in a part of that DNA? When that cell makes a copy, now it's a faulty cell, and that's called a mutation. So what happens is each new generation, instead of copying the pristine instructions, there's misinformation there, or information that's missing. So now I make a copy, and then more free radicals come and create more damage, and I'm making a copy of a faulty copy of a faulty copy of a faulty copy. So these two are so important. And this NRF2 switch makes sure that everything that is needed for DNA repair is functioning, and also correct the programmed cell death, so we don't have the uncontrolled proliferation of cells. So there's another switch called NRF1, and this one codes for increased mitochondrial function and networks. Some of you may remember here in the US in 6th grade biology, they call the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. I don't know if you've heard about that, but inside the cell is these little organelles called mitochondria is what make the energy, and it's called ATP. So just like you go to the store and you have to pay with, you know, cash or a credit card, you know, that's your currency to pay for groceries. For the cell to pay to make all the things that it needs, the program, the fatty acids, to maintain the cell wall, for everything, we need this molecule of ATP. So especially if you have performance animals, as they age, and it's also for humans. So as we age, this production of ATP decline, and that's why we feel tired and we have all these lofty ideas. I'm going to do this, and then by the end of the afternoon, we've lost all our mojo. That's because we're not making enough ATP to keep us going. So when the NRF1 switch turns on, look at all the great things that happen. So you have more mitochondria, you make more cellular energy, and it will also influence performance. So there is a company called LifeVantage that has found a way to, by using nutritional compounds. So these are things that you probably heard about: turmeric, green tea, bacopa, milk thistle, ashwagandha. These are all herbs. And they have turned them with a very precise formula into an NRF2 activator. What does this mean? That by using this product, we can activate this NRF2 gene, and they actually have the studies that prove that it can reduce oxidative stress by 40% in 30 days. So how did they do that? They did some clinical studies in humans. So the light blue is the amount of oxidative stress. This is how our oxidative stress increases, right? Created by those free radicals. This is how it goes up in time. So this is a 20-year-old person, and this is an 80-year-old person, and see how high that is. Now, what they found out is that when they gave people this NRF2 formula, it all stayed at the level of a 20-year-old. So when they did these trials in the blood, they measured something called T-bars, and they found that an 80-year-old person and a 20-year-old person, they couldn't tell the difference. They were exactly the same. So that was incredible, so incredible that it never ever happened, that this company was granted a patent for this product. And for those of you that are more sciencey, there's here in the United States, they have a test called C-reactive protein, CRP, and that is a measure of inflammation in the body. And they also they were granted a patent because they could show that it reduces CRP in mammals. So this is where, dogs, horses, goats, sheep, anything that's a mammal can benefit from NRF2. Cats. The NRF1, same thing. It's a mix of these 5. Someone mentioned quercetin initially, but I'll explain to you why this is different than taking these individually. So they have also measured these genes. Genes have funky names like this, PGC1 alpha. And so this gene is activated by 71%. This gene is activated by 65%. So that's how they know that the product works. So why is this so important? Remember, I mentioned the word enzyme, and the word enzyme, this is the key. One of our body's enzymes can neutralize 1 million free radicals per second. Remember, the direct antioxidant was 1-to-1, and they were both done. So now one enzyme can destroy 1 million free radicals per second. Think of that, every second, boom, 1 million, 1 million, 1 million. So can you see now how this can knock off 12 zeros of this huge amount? So now we are making a dent. The direct antioxidant is like throwing a Dixie cup of water on a house on fire, like it's going to do nothing. And this is having like a fire truck in every room of the house on fire, putting out that fire, meaning by the fire, all this free radical damage. So just one enzyme can take 1 million out. So this is, so a lot of you may be thinking, well, I can go to the health food store and buy green tea and buy milk thistle and buy turmeric. But what they discovered was that when they measured the activation power of these herbs individually, can you see here how some of them are even negative, right? Milk thistle just a little bit, but that formula, it's 18 times more powerful. So that's why they call it a synergistic formula. So, and that's why they were granted the patent. This is the patent that I was telling you about. This is from the US Patents Office, compositions for alleviating inflammation and oxidative stress in a mammal. And this is pretty significant for a natural product. So they were granted a composition patent because obviously these are herbs from nature, you can't patent them. So I want to talk a little bit about this enzyme called glutathione, because it's super, super important. So glutathione is, think of glutathione like sticky fly paper, like all the bad things stick to it and then the body can get rid of it. So what happens is like oxidative stress. See, this is what I'm talking about. As we age, oxidative stress goes up and our ability, the body's ability to make glutathione goes down. So can you see how this is like a double sword, right? It's we're creating more oxidative stress and we have less enzymes to fight it. So one of the benefits of glutathione is it increases energy, it slows down aging, reduces muscle and joint discomfort. So all of, if you have older dogs that are starting to slow down, you start seeing them like, struggling a little bit to get on the couch, to get on the bed, to get up once if they've been sleeping for a long time. That's going to help them so much. It strengthens the immune system, detoxifies the liver, so important for all the toxins we discussed about. For those of you that have performance animals, if you compete with your dogs or your horses, mental focus, clarity, the quality of sleep, it reduces the effects of just stress. So for those of you that have rescue dogs that they're a little bit more anxious, getting them used to their new surroundings, all of that, it's going to help immensely. Improves the skin and athletic performance and recovery. So also for those of you, if you compete with your animals, being able to recover, and also if you have injuries are bound to happen, so recover quicker. So with the mitochondria, so this is a very interesting book by a scientist called Travis Christofferson, and the book is called Tripping Over the Truth, the Metabolic Theory of Cancer. And he says the condition of the mitochondria dictate the capacity of the cell to function over time. As they decline, cellular operations decline with them. So there is a mitochondrial disease, but and it's a genetic disease, but if we think about this, about declining mitochondria, like look at all the things that come up: diabetes, epilepsy, unexplained liver failure, cancer, unexplained kidney disease, heart disease and heart failure. And then in humans, ADHD, autism, all those Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all these neurodegenerative diseases are also associated with mitochondrial dysfunction. And it makes sense, right? Because our brain, we need, it uses so much energy to function. So if a brain does not have enough good functioning mitochondria, it's kind of easy to see how we'd start developing these issues, right? So I wanted to focus a little bit on cancer, because one of the things that really distresses me is this, I want to call it an epidemic of cancer in dogs. Like 2-3 months ago, I lost one of my students. He was just 9-year-old, beautiful Aussie, well taken care of. He was diagnosed with a tumor in his lung. 3 months later, he's gone. Just this past week, another lady, 9-year-old golden retriever, was diagnosed with lymphoma. She's a fellow competitor in agility. And then another lady, and I think her dog is much younger. I don't know exactly, but I saw her at the last trial. He was super young dog, super energetic. They found a huge lump in his rib part, and now they're talking about taking out 3 ribs. And I just, to me is just, and if you're on Facebook, all the time, it's people, oh, my dog. And I see what Dr. Goldston says, it's not like, oh, my 14-year-old, it's my 5-year-old, my 7-year-old, my 6-year-old. So this is just distressing. So look at this. Isn't this interesting? So recent cancer research demonstrate that if a cancerous cell nucleus is transplanted into a normal cell, the cell remains normal. However, if you transplant the mitochondria from a cancerous cell into a normal cell, the cell becomes cancerous. So cancer cells have damaged mitochondria. This is from this book that I was telling you about. Damaged mitochondria send emergency signals, and the DNA responds, and the cell begins to exhibit the hallmark features of cancer: uncontrolled proliferation, that's the apoptosis, lack of apoptosis, DNA mutations, and evasion of cell death. Cancer starts from damage to the respiration, which happens in the mitochondria, regardless of the tissue. The mitochondria become damaged. Once the mitochondria become damaged, they throw out reactive oxygen species, and they are mutagenic and carcinogenic. So here we have this word again, oxidative stress, right? Reactive oxygen is oxidative stress. And now we know that by activating that NRF2 pathway, we can reduce that by 40% in 30 days. So in summary, through this genetic activation, right? Think of it as like turning on these cellular switches, this DNA switches. We have this NRF2 pathway and the NRF1 pathway, and they go hand in hand. I have everyone in my family is activated, but for my dogs, I start very early on with the NRF2. And then for my older guys, I start adding the NRF1. because of those cancer stats. The cancer stats are now, at least here in the United States, 50% of dogs over 10 years will die of cancer. 50% over dogs over 10 years. So with the NRF2, we reduce free radicals by 40% in 30 days. So it's protection, antioxidant protection. We detox. So that glutathione that we talked about, that it has so many good, so many benefits for the body, is activated by 300%. Glutathione, the cell has to make. You cannot eat glutathione, just like you can eat antioxidants. You cannot eat glutathione, or you can eat glutathione precursors, but it's a very complicated process. So this is the cell making its own glutathione, and it's going to turn on survival genes and reduce inflammation. So inflammation, we'll talk a little bit about it, but if your dog is diagnosed with anything, or you for that matter, anything that ends in itis, what itis means is inflammation. And then the NRF1 will increase that cellular energy, that ATP. It's going to promote the healthy formation of mitochondria. Now we know how crucial they are for health, and maintain peak cellular function. So if you are like a science nerdy person and like to do some research on your own, I suggest you go here. This is PubMed.gov, is the National Institute of Health online library. I'm sure there's one in the UK as well, but I don't know. I know there's one in Canada. So this is a government site. It's not owned by the company. It's not owned by any particular individual. If they have a search bar, just like in Google, if you type NRF2, you will see that there are over 20,000 studies. And if you type NRF1, there's over 1,500 studies. So this is new science, new things that are being discovered. Like probably 10 years ago, there'll be like 3. So this is new emerging science, super, super exciting. So I have a few before and afters here. We have lots of videos, but my internet doesn't support to do the Zoom and show videos. So again, not meant to treat, cure, mitigate any disease. We're just giving the body the tools to do the job itself. So this was a growth on this dog's tongue, and it's gradually going away. This is a cat from a friend of mine, and let's start here. So this is the pad of her feet, and when this is a rescue, so when she found her, her leg was broken and had already healed in that funky position where she was using, this part, literally the bone, to walk on her leg as opposed to the pad, because see, the pad is here. So this horrible growth had happened, and they had tried grafts and you name it. And then the vet said, well, there's nothing else we can do. We're going to have to amputate the leg. So over time, it just started kind of going into nothing. This is an amazing story. This is one of my favorite studies. Eli belongs to one of my students, and this is what his knee looked like. He was limping badly, so they do an x-ray and they found this horrible mess of a knee. They thought he had bone cancer, and they called the experts at the University of Florida, and she came in and was like, no, it's just horrible arthritis. They did arthroscopic surgery, nothing worked. Eli was in a lot of pain, wouldn't use his leg, and they said, well, we're going to have to amputate the leg. And his mom was so sad. She came to class and said, oh, I'm looking into carts, because we're thinking we're going to have to amputate Eli's leg, and his other leg doesn't look too great either. And I'm like, oh, hold on. So I said, why don't you try this for a bit and see? Well, so I forget about it. Like 3 months later, Michelle comes and says, who's doing great? Like, I'm like, who? Eli. I'm like, really? Yes. And he jumps in and out of the car. Now he's going for a walk. He plays with his corgi brother and sister like crazy. And I'm like, you have to send me a video. Like, I don't believe it. And it was true. Like, this dog is racing around. Eli's like 40 some pounds. He lost weight because he had gained all this weight because he wasn't moving. And this was from last Christmas. This is, they moved to Virginia, and there's a lot of snow. And here he is running uphill with her grandkids, just happy as a lark. And then this was another case. This is very interesting. This poor little dog was born with a liver shunt. And the vet said, nothing we can do, put her down, put her down, put her down. He was bloated, wouldn't eat. And then, liver shunt is a genetic, but we put her on the NRF2, and I believe she lived another 6 months. But once she started getting better, like this was her in Thanksgiving. And I wish you could see the video of her just wagging her tail, like so happy. So, eventually she passed, but she had another, like 6 months of quality life, happy. Her mom was ecstatic that she was so happy. So, from this to this, it's just priceless. And like I said, that was a genetic disease, so little you could do about it. So here are before and afters. This is going to interest Claire because she's struggling with allergies. So this is a rescue. And here again, these are people that had tried, they had thrown, like we say here in the United States, everything but the kitchen sink. They've tried everything, holistic, non-holistic. And look at the changes. Look at this poor dog, how inflamed he was. And look at him here, okay? This dog had seizures, and he's doing much better. The seizures have become a lot less, the clusters like more spread apart. Here's another skin unexplained, alopecia. This is a young lab. Again, they've tried everything, dips and this and that. And look at her coat, how it's coming back. It's just amazing. These are not only performance, these are both my students. So he's a gorgeous Belgian Tervuren, and she's a mini Aussie. This is Saya. She was a rescue, and they think that the family that had her had young kids, and they kind of tormented her. So she was like deathly afraid of kids. And when she started doing lessons with me, I would have to stand like 20, 30 feet apart because she did not want people close to her, always like looking behind her back, like who's following me. She would bark incessantly in her crate at trials. They would have to cover her crate. And she just changed night and day. Kids can come now, feed her treats off of their hand. She's still performing in agility, and a lot calmer. And Jordy, this is Jordy. He's gorgeous. And we have no explanation for this. He would be in class, and all of a sudden he would spook and run and get in his car, and we couldn't get him out. And for the life of us, we couldn't know what it is and what was going through his head. So again, I just tell like, well, what do we got to lose? Let's just try the NRF2. Well, a month later, he's winning, group 1 at a show. He would just spook at the microphone, the loudspeakers at the show. His tail would go down. She couldn't get him to perform. So incredible. This is more for the anxiety aspect of it. And I love this. So we call this is what living a life activated. So this is Emma. So this is a little challenge that we did. She had just won her 15th agility trial championship. And she had all these pictures, and I was like, oh my God, like, so these pictures are a span of 6 years. So she started being activated, I think when she was 4, and she's been activated all her life just for prevention. So we did this challenge, like, okay, can you put these in chronological order? And you can see this dog at, whatever, 6 years and 12 years, she's jumping exactly the same height. It's like you can pretty much not tell how high she's jumping, how old she is because of how high she's jumping. So I love this example also because we want to keep our dogs young and healthy for as long as possible. So this is my huge, call to action is this prevention, is don't wait for your animals to get sick. This is what drew me to natural healing when I was like going through the same thing over and over. And I said, instead of let's get to the root cause, but let's prevent, like, what can we do so that we don't have to cure in the first place, right? So this is a study, I don't know if you're familiar with this. This study was done by the University of California, and because they've mapped the human genome and the dog genome, they found these aging markers and they compared the two. And we have almost everybody, we go like, oh, 1 year in a dog is the equivalent of 7 in humans. And that's what we thought, that's what we've always said, right? 1 year is 7 years. Well, look at the facts. When your dog is a year old, he's the equivalent of a 30-year-old person, because what they discovered is that dogs age exponentially during their first 4 years. And then the curve starts kind of sloping. So by the time your dog is 4 years old, he's the equivalent of like a 52, 53-year-old person. So I was under the impression like, oh, if I start activating when my dogs are like 6 or 7, or, maybe 5, that'll be good. And my last 2 dogs, they're going to be 4 years in November. And then when I took them for their 3 months checkup at the vet, my vet is also a distributor of these products. And she says, like, you already have them on NRF2, right? And I'm like, no, they're 3 months old. And she says, oh, no, you start them right now because we want to prevent. And that opened my eyes like, whoa, okay, if the vet is saying that, I better do it. So so I started activating them right away. And now when this came out, I want to say maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it really brought it home. I was like, wow, was she right about telling me to start prevention, when I'm down here, because they're already in their 20s and their 30s, and not wait, how I was doing, like, oh, when they're 5, they're already like 60. Okay. So, this, to me, it just makes sense. Start biohacking early and we help them celebrate more birthdays, lifespan versus health span. This is also a new term here. And so it's not how long you live, but how long you live healthy. And, you're like me, you don't want to live the last months of your life like glued to, a machine that's breathing for you. Right. So, this is my call to action. Obviously, I know it's a lot of information. You probably have questions and want to read more about it. We're all about that, but we are recruiting voices. We need more people to join our team. We're on a mission to help 100,000 animals live happier and longer lives by sharing this life-saving information. We want more happy dogs, and we don't want all this suffering, unnecessary suffering, huge expense, emotional expense, monetary expense for their caregivers. People are so distressed when their animals are sick. It affects everyone in the family. So we are in all these countries. We're working with a very successful team. A lot of them are women, so we don't mean to exclude the men, but we are teaching women to create additional income. I speak for myself. I'm a dog trainer. I'm a solopreneur. I'm my business. If I get sick, if I don't work, I don't get paid. And I live in Florida. It's very hot in summer. I don't have an indoor air conditioning. We work outdoors. So pretty much the months of, half of July, August, mid-September, nobody wants to come to class. So my income drops down, but my bills are the same. So I've learned the hard way that, having an additional income, we've gone through things like COVID with these, total shutdowns where nobody's allowed to go out. So just thinking about an additional stream of income, something that you can do from your home, from your computer, like we're doing now on Zooms, we have incredible help. So if that is something that calls to your attention, having an additional income while following your passion, which is really about helping the animals. So I want to, I love to end with this. So this is Eli. That's that dog that the vet wanted to have the leg amputated. And this is the video that I wish I could play, but Michelle texts me, she says like, oh, there's a creek at the end of our property, and Eli just jumps and clears it. And I'm like, what? So she sends me this picture, and Eli just like, flip, he jumps and just keeps on running, like it's nobody's business. So what I always think is, how many more Elis are out there waiting for someone like us to give them a chance? And, all 4 limbs, this is like 4 years later, and he is just a happy, happy dog. And I get so emotional, and I apologize, but this really means the world to me to be able to help these animals. We have recently helped another lady with her beautiful Shar. She had made 2 appointments to put him down because of kidney failure, and we found someone to bring her some NRF2 activation pills while her order came in through the mail. And I just talked to her today, and I said, "How's Walter?" He's like, "Oh my God," he's like leaping around the place like nothing had happened. This is a dog that had stopped eating for weeks and drinking, and he's back to life, and it means the world to his mom. So so I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to, so thank you so much everyone for joining. I hope this has been helpful and eye-opening, that we not to give up on our animals, that we can give them a better chance, that the body can heal. The body is an amazing, amazing miracle, and if we give it the right help, the right tools, it will heal. And I know so many people in this group, that I wanted to thank Heather for opening this, this group to me, and being able to reach more people. It really, I'm really, really grateful. But we have to be a voice for the voiceless. There's a lot of things that are going on with them that can be prevented. It's so simple, so simple. It's very cost effective. We have this genetic activation technology available in so many countries, and we want this information to be spread far and wide so we can help more dogs. So I'm going to thank you again for your attention. I'm going to stop the recording, and then I'll stay here for a little while. If anybody has questions, just unmute yourself.